Today's book of the day is Made in America by Sam Walton, who, as you might know, he's the one that founded Walmart all those years ago. And this is one of my favorite books for a lot of reasons. But, one of the best reasons is that it was written by Sam Walton himself. So you get, insights from someone who built one of the largest companies to ever exist. And he also was able to build it at a time when technology was slowly being adopted by a lot of companies in the US, but he was one of the first to actually implement accounting systems and inventory tracking systems across his entire network of stores. And you can glean a lot of insights from reading this book. And one of the best starts out early on when he tells the story. Well, really, he uses a newspaper clipping because in some ways he's embarrassed by the story. But he had actually saved a young boy that was, drowning in a river when he was out with some of his friends. And he kind of brushes it off and says that, he's not a hero, even though he had, jumped in and saved the kid and given him CPR. But he highlights in this story what he considers to be one of his most important attributes, and for him, that was his bias towards action. He said throughout his life he didn't really, think too much. He always just, jumped into things, and not in a reckless way, but in a way that, if he did something wrong or made a mistake, he could correct it quickly. And that short feedback loop, I think, the numbers will tell you that it worked out pretty well for him, having this bias towards action throughout his life. And another interesting story that he tells early on is about being, the running back for his high school football team. And or it could have been quarterback, either or, he was one of the starters on his high school football team, as well as the captain of his basketball team. And one of the lessons that he drew out of that is in football, he never actually lost a game throughout his whole high school career. And although he attributes, losing some of the games, a few of the games that the team would have lost anyway, without him, he didn't play because he was injured. And so on paper, he never actually lost a high school football game personally. And he said that was huge for him throughout his life and his career, because he always expected to go into challenges, with the thought that he was going to win. There was never a doubt that he was going to do something, he was going to fail, or that it wasn't going to go well. His mindset was always oriented towards being successful in whatever he was going to do. And I think that's a really important trait for people to have in life, because there's not really a benefit to going into something with, the thought that you're going to fail at it. But there are benefits to going into something thinking you're going to succeed, because in many ways it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, which he points out in the book. Because whether it was, playing tennis matches against people competitively, or just going into different business endeavors against competitors, Sam Walton always expected to win. And, that, I think that's, something that a lot of people can use in their lives. And he also talks about, starting these Walmart stores. They weren't the first stores that he started. He had started by opening up franchises after he left the military. And one of the craziest facts that came out of this book after reading it was that he didn't open his first Walmart until he was well into his 40s. So, especially in today's day and age, we see so many people online that have success at young ages, and it really helps put in perspective when you read these stories of great individuals in history or successful entrepreneurs in history, and you realize that, these things didn't happen overnight. And even for a lot of the people that have success early in life, it wasn't really an overnight success. It was years in the making. They just started earlier. And like Warren Buffett said, that was what he believed to be his number one reason for success, is that he just started so early and he was able to compound all those results over time. And what starts as a small seed grows into a massive forest eventually. And this Sam Walton biography has so many different, or autobiography, I should say, has so many different insights in it. But another great one is that he was always looking at his competitors, and this is something that businesses can utilize today, because there's so many different insights we can gain from looking at people that either we're directly competing with or adjacent industries, and see what they're doing, and instead of looking down on them or complaining about them. That was something that Sam highlighted a lot, is that he didn't want him or his employees to look at what other companies were doing wrong. He wanted them to go and visit competitors and see what they were doing right, so they could adapt and implement some of those solutions for themselves. And I think that's a great way to look at things, because again, you could take the negative approach and complain about what competitors are doing if they're lowering their prices, or undercutting you, or doing things that you don't like. But the other side of it is you could look at the things that they're doing really well and say, how can I implement this in my business? Or it's the same thing, in life, when you're walking on the street or in your day-to-day and you see things that other people are doing, and you could think, oh, I don't like what that person's doing, I'm going to avoid that. But the other side of it is you could look at what someone's doing and be like, oh, that person's, they're really well spoken, or they dress really well, so I'm gonna adapt that and use that in my own life. And that seems to be a much better way of going about things. And I'll leave you with one more insight that Sam has in this book, of the many, is from a story. And throughout the book there's small little snippets of people that he knows that told stories about him or gave an outsider's perspective. And one of his executives, David Glass, said this about him. He said, 2 things about Sam Walton distinguish him from almost everyone else I know. First, he gets up every day bound and determined to improve something. Second, he is less afraid of being wrong than anyone I've ever known. And once he sees he's wrong, he just shakes it off and heads in another direction. And this again is one of several superpowers that Sam Walton has, and that any of you can use in your lives or in business too, is when you see that you're wrong, or that one of your hypotheses wasn't right, or you made a mistake, it's so easy to just, and I've done it too, just to dwell on that or to not want to address the problem. But the best course of action seems to be either addressing it, admitting you're wrong, and just moving on from there. And people will give you a lot of credit too if you do that, because the default reaction that people expect when they say that you or I have done something wrong is they expect you to fight back and to say, no, I didn't do anything wrong. But if we can take the opposite approach and like Sam Walton, and of course you're not always going to be wrong, but if you are and you recognize it, you could take some amount of time to process what you did wrong. But the quicker you can turn around and have a bias towards more positive action and move into a different direction, I think the better your life and business will be. So thanks again for tuning in to another one of these book reviews, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another episode. Thanks.